Hey everyone, Kiki Kannon here with Kannon Studios. Welcome to another video. And this video is going to be a continuation of the Daybreaker. You can check out part 1. This is going to be part 2. So it's based on the Daybreaker from Breath of the Wild, Zelda, or Tears of the Kingdom. However, keep in mind I did change the colors as this was for a specific design for a competition that I was competing with in this costume. So I'm sorry this video came so much later, but in the process of me working on it, I was heavily grinding and I tried to record and remember to record as much as possible. And now I'm finding the time to finally put it together. So please feel free to subscribe and tune in for next week where I have part 3 where I assemble the shield.
So I got the outside of the shield assembled at this point, and I had to do the rest of the 3D modeling on the shield in Blender, as you can see, basically putting together all the pieces and how it's going to fit together and engineering it to work with the foam and the other pieces, and also figuring out the back design and the handles and how that is all going to work. So there's this one reference of the back of the shield that I was able to use to create these pieces. And so the handle pieces are also 3D modeled in Blender, and I just printed them on my Elegoo Jupiter. And there they are on my Wham Bam flex plate that I also use. And here are the cap pieces, which are also going to help cover up all the bolts that are going to go around the shield for assembly. And all of my resin pieces are basically go through a wash cleaning cycle and sanded down. So here's the back of the shield. I'm going to be using a lot of foam pieces for these parts. And I tested the wood texture on some scrap pieces before I went ahead and did the whole entire back. And it was pretty easy to do it all. I think it came out pretty well. And I'm mostly sticking with foam for the back piece and the front piece, just to kind of keep the weight down, and also because it was just going to be easier to texture it this way, and I didn't really feel that resin was necessarily required. I think that the foam just worked better. And now that I have the back textured, we can move on to the front of the shield, which is also going to be foam, but I'm going to be using a thicker foam for this part, and the back is mostly just a thin foam for hiding anything and also texturing. So I'm going to be gluing it together with the barge cement glue, and I just cut it into these triangle shapes, these pie shapes, so that it can have the curvature of the shield. And now with my pieces glued together, I just heat seal it with the heat gun. And for this, I'm going to be using gesso to fill in the cracks and to also sand it. I thought I had this process recorded, but I guess I didn't. So if anybody wants any other videos on this, just let me know in the comments below. So for the 3D modeling H part here, I designed it in Blender, and this H part was an important piece because not only is it part of the design, but it basically kind of holds the shield together. So I needed to cut this out of aluminum flashing to hold the shield together, to give it the structure, as well as a foam piece that will go over it and basically hide this metal piece to kind of keep it structured from having the strength to hold it up by the handle pieces that I'm making. So that way nothing tears or rips apart, and it's going to keep it nice and strong and hold it together. So after creating this file in Blender, I had to export it and bring it over so that I could cut it out on my CNC. I didn't do this by hand, so I'm using Vectric to laser out the foam piece, as well as cutting out the metal H portion as well. So here's the metal that I used that I cut out with the CNC. Sorry, I didn't have footage. I was crunching for a competition, and I think just some of the recordings did get away from me. So I got the back portion painted and all the primer laid really nicely. However, I did try this new gold spray paint that I saw just to see if it was going to work. And initially it seemed like it was working well, but over time I realized that it was just a pain in the ass, and I've had to do so much touching up and so much work with the gold paint. It was probably the biggest, most time-consuming, expensive part of it unnecessarily, so I'm never going to work with that specific paint again, but I hope I can find a beautiful gold replacement paint. I just don't think it worked well with the primer or something else about it of maybe why they didn't work well together. So here are the strap pieces, which I created in Vectric. I'm going to be lasering these out with the design to also match the belt on my costume. And so I'm just going to be doing the same process for these, where I'm going to coat them in gesso and paint with some acrylic paint on top. And these straps and the foam is thick enough and durable enough to use for the straps. And they work pretty well to look like leather, and I kind of textured them a little bit so that it gave it a less smooth of a look. And also with all my foam pieces, I seal them with different varnishes to give different finishes. So there's my H piece, and I didn't show the metal underneath of it, but basically the metal H is just underneath of that, and then I glued the foam over it to basically hold the structured piece. And here's the top of the shield, which I had to tape off for the various color combinations. And as I mentioned before, these colors aren't traditional to the original design of the Daybreaker. I did change the colors for kind of my own personal version of it. So it's starting to come together nicely. Those are where the caps are going to go, and everything is going to get screwed and bolted together, and then everything gets covered by caps. So this is just through the painting process, which everything came out pretty good, except for I had to kind of go back a lot and kind of touch up and refinish things, which again took more extra time than I thought. I didn't get as much footage on the gems that I 3D modeled, and I also printed those on the Elegoo with clear resin. And so I tried various things with the gems, and some things didn't quite work how I wanted. So I was thinking about making a completely separate video on the gems and seeing if I could achieve the look that I originally wanted.
So thank you guys for joining me for another video. Again, as I mentioned, next week I'll be releasing part 3 of the Daybreaker, and I am streaming back on Twitch again, and soon I hope to go back to my crafting streams as soon as I move my computer back into my studio. So I hope you guys can join me there, and I appreciate all the support, and thank you guys for being patient with me, and I hope to get back to making more videos this year. So thank you guys. Hope to see you guys next week. Bye.